Imagine a sleek, silver Spitfire streaking across the sky, its elliptical wings slicing through clouds. This iconic fighter would change the course of history. But how did a single-seat aircraft become the savior of a nation? In the next 10 minutes, you'll soar through the untold story of the Spitfire. From its humble beginnings to becoming Britain's guardian angel, you'll experience the adrenaline rush of pilots pushing these machines to their limits. What made this aircraft so extraordinary? How did it outmaneuver its opponents? Prepare to uncover the secrets of the plane that embodied a nation's will to survive. The calm before the storm. Picture this. A warm summer's day in 1940, the English countryside bathed in golden sunlight. Rolling hills stretch as far as the eye can see, dotted with quaint villages and grazing sheep. But something's not quite right. There's a tension in the air, a sense of unease that seems at odds with the idyllic scene. The shadow of fear creeps across Britain. Hitler's war machine is poised just across the channel, ready to unleash its full fury. The Nazi conquest of Europe is nearly complete, and now their sights are set on the last bastion of resistance, the British Isles. Britain faces overwhelming odds. The German Luftwaffe boasts a formidable force of around 2,500 aircraft, including the deadly Messerschmitt Bf-109s. These sleek fighters, with their superior speed and maneuverability, outperform many of Britain's existing planes. In comparison, the Royal Air Force has only about 1,000 frontline fighters. It's a David versus Goliath scenario, but this time, Goliath has an entire air force at his disposal. The anxiety grips the nation. In homes across Britain, families huddle around radios, hanging on every word of the news broadcasts. Air raid shelters are hastily constructed in backyards, a grim reminder of the imminent threat from above. Prime Minister Winston Churchill's words echo through Parliament. The Battle of France is over. The Battle of Britain is about to begin. It's a chilling statement that drives home the reality of the impending conflict. Control of the skies is crucial. The side that dominates the air can see everything, strike anywhere, and cripple their opponent's ability to respond. For Britain, maintaining air superiority isn't just a military objective, it's a matter of national survival. The RAF faces a Herculean task. They must intercept and engage waves of enemy bombers, disrupting Hitler's invasion plans before they can gain a foothold. But with their current resources, it seems like an impossible mission. The odds are stacked against them, the enemy is at the gates, and time is running out. In this darkest hour, Britain desperately needs a game-changer. Something to level the playing field, to give their pilots a fighting chance against the Luftwaffe's seemingly unstoppable force. Enter the Spitfire. Like a ray of hope piercing through storm clouds, this aircraft emerges as Britain's potential savior. Its sleek design and powerful engine hint at untapped potential, a promise of performance that could match or even surpass the feared Messerschmitt. The fate of Britain hangs in the balance. The stage is set for an aerial battle unlike any the world has ever seen. As the Spitfire takes to the skies, it carries with it the hopes and dreams of an entire nation. Will it rise to the challenge and become the guardian angel Britain so desperately needs? 3. Birth of a legend. Picture yourself in a bustling factory, the air thick with the scent of oil and metal. Before you, a sleek shape takes form, unlike anything seen before. This is the birthplace of the Spitfire, and at its helm stands R.J. Mitchell, a brilliant British aircraft designer facing a daunting challenge. The RAF desperately needed a new fighter plane to defend against the looming German threat. Mitchell's ideas were far from conventional, and skepticism shadowed his every move. At the heart of his design was a revolutionary elliptical wing. Critics scoffed, questioning its practicality and production feasibility. But Mitchell stood firm, convinced it held the key to aerial supremacy. The Spitfire wasn't just about its wings. Mitchell envisioned a fighter that combined speed, agility, and deadly accuracy. He incorporated a sleek, aerodynamic fuselage that seemed to slice through the air. The cockpit was positioned to give pilots an unprecedented field of view, crucial for spotting enemy aircraft in dogfights. Powering this mechanical marvel was the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, a powerhouse that would push the limits of what was thought possible in the air. As the prototype neared completion, tension mounted. The day of the first test flight arrived, and a hush fell over the airfield. The Spitfire's engine roared to life, and it began to roll down the runway. What happened next was extraordinary. As the Spitfire took to the skies, it soared with grace that belied its deadly purpose. The test pilots were exhilarated, describing an experience unlike any other. The aircraft responded to their slightest touch, as if it were an extension of their own bodies. One pilot remarked, "It was as if the plane knew what I wanted before I did." The Spitfire's agility was unmatched, its speed breathtaking. As test flights continued, the Spitfire's potential became impossible to ignore. Its unique design allowed it to outturn and outmaneuver existing fighters with ease. The elliptical wing provided exceptional lift and reduced drag, allowing the Spitfire to climb faster and turn tighter than its rivals. Word of the Spitfire's capabilities spread quickly. Pilots clamored for the chance to fly it, sensing that this aircraft could be the edge they needed against the formidable Luftwaffe. The British public too began to take notice. In a time of growing uncertainty, the Spitfire became a symbol of hope, a guardian angel with wings of metal and a heart of fire. R.J. Mitchell's journey from doubted visionary to national hero was nearly complete. Sadly, he wouldn't live to see his creation's finest hour. Mitchell passed away in 1937, but his legacy lived on in every Spitfire that rolled off the production line. As the dark clouds of war gathered over Europe, the Spitfire underwent final refinements. From its humble beginnings as an unconventional prototype, it had evolved into Britain's most potent weapon in the coming air war. 4. Trial by fire. As dawn breaks over the English Channel, RAF pilot Alan Thompson scans the horizon from his Spitfire's cockpit. His heart races as he spots a formation of German bombers approaching. This is the moment he's trained for, but nothing could truly prepare him for the reality of aerial combat. The intensity of the dogfight hits Alan like a punch to the gut. The Spitfire's incredible maneuverability becomes both a blessing and a challenge. He pulls into a tight turn, feeling the G-forces pressing him into his seat. His vision narrows as he fights to stay conscious, hands moving instinctively across the controls. RAF pilots quickly developed tactics to exploit the Spitfire's strengths. They'd climb rapidly to gain altitude, then dive on enemy formations with the sun at their backs. The Spitfire's tight turning circle allowed them to outmaneuver the German Messerschmitt Bf-109s in close combat. Alan recalls getting on an enemy's tail before they knew he was there, his heart pounding as he lined up the shot. The bond between pilot and machine grew deep. Alan describes his Spitfire as an extension of my own body, a sentiment echoed by many RAF aces. This connection gave them a crucial edge in battle. For German pilots, the sight of a Spitfire diving out of the sun became a source of dread. They knew they faced a formidable opponent that could match or exceed their own aircraft in many aspects. This psychological advantage often tipped the scales before the first shot was fired. The skies over Britain became a stage for incredible feats of courage. Imagine Alan taking on 3 enemy fighters at once. His Spitfire twists and turns in ways that seem to defy physics. Bullets whistle past his canopy as he maneuvers for position. The acrid smell of cordite fills his nostrils as he squeezes the trigger, sending one of the German planes spiraling towards the channel below. As the Battle of Britain raged on, the question was whether these individual triumphs could translate into a larger strategic victory. The odds were stacked against Britain. The Luftwaffe's numerical superiority was daunting, and for a time it seemed the island nation might be overwhelmed. But with each passing day, the Spitfire proved its worth. Its ability to intercept bombers and engage fighters on equal terms disrupted the German air campaign. The Luftwaffe found itself unable to gain the air superiority it needed for a successful invasion. Slowly but surely the tide began to turn. How close did Britain come to losing the war before the Spitfire turned the tide? At several points during the Battle of Britain, the RAF was stretched to its absolute limit. Airfields were bombed, pilots were exhausted, and replacement aircraft were in short supply. If the Spitfire had been even slightly less capable, or if pilots had been unable to exploit its strengths so effectively, the outcome might have been very different. 5. The Battle of Britain. The skies over London fill with an ominous drone as hundreds of German bombers approach. It's August 1940, and the Battle of Britain has reached its fever pitch. As air raid sirens wail, the roar of Rolls-Royce Merlin engines cuts through the cacophony. Britain's last line of defense, the Spitfire, rises to meet the German onslaught. The odds are staggering. The Luftwaffe fields about 2,600 aircraft, more than double the RAF's 1,200 fighters. Picture yourself on the ground, watching this aerial ballet of death unfold. Spitfires weave between lumbering bombers, their guns spitting fire. The sky becomes a canvas of smoke trails, parachutes, and fiery wreckage. In this desperate struggle, the Spitfire proves its worth. Its exceptional maneuverability and climbing ability make it a formidable opponent for the German Messerschmitt Bf 109. The Spitfire can turn tighter and climb faster, giving RAF pilots a crucial edge in close-quarter dogfights. However, the Bf 109 has a slight speed advantage at certain altitudes, making disengagement from combat easier for German pilots. One of the most critical moments comes during the defense of London. As the Luftwaffe shifts focus from RAF airfields to the capital, Spitfire squadrons play a pivotal role in breaking up bomber formations. The sight of Spitfires tearing through the sky becomes a symbol of hope for Londoners enduring the Blitz. The strain on pilots is almost superhuman. At the battle's peak, RAF Fighter Command flies over 3,000 sorties in a single day. Many pilots find themselves in the cockpit from dawn to dusk, snatching brief moments of rest between sorties. They take off, engage the enemy, land to refuel and rearm, then take off again, sometimes repeating this cycle 4 or 5 times a day. Ground crews work tirelessly to keep the Spitfires flying, often repairing battle damage under constant threat of Luftwaffe raids. The entire nation holds its breath, knowing that if the RAF falters, Hitler's planned invasion, Operation Sea Lion, will become a grim reality. The Spitfire's success isn't solely due to its design. The introduction of radar technology gives the RAF a crucial edge. Chain-home radar stations along the coast provide early warning of incoming raids, allowing controllers to vector Spitfire squadrons to optimal intercept positions. As the battle rages on, losses mount on both sides. The RAF loses over 1,000 aircraft, while the Luftwaffe suffers even greater casualties, with around 1,700 planes shot down. The question on everyone's mind is, who will break first? In the end, it's the Germans who blink. Despite their numerical superiority, the Luftwaffe fails to achieve air supremacy over southern England. The Spitfire, along with its stablemate, the Hawker Hurricane, has helped to deny Hitler the conditions he needs for invasion. Operation Sea Lion is postponed, then cancelled altogether. 6. The People's Plane. Picture: a young boy standing on a street in London, his eyes fixed on the sky. A familiar roar fills the air, and suddenly a sleek Spitfire streaks across the clouds. The boy's face lights up with a mixture of awe and pride. This wasn't just any plane. It was Britain's winged guardian, a symbol of hope in the darkest of times. As the threat of invasion faded, the Spitfire's mission evolved. It became a beacon of resilience for an entire nation. But how did a mere machine capture the hearts and minds of millions? The answer lies in the extraordinary connection forged between the British people and their beloved fighter plane. Imagine walking through any town in Britain during the war years. Spitfire posters adorned pubs, schools, and corner shops. The aircraft's graceful silhouette appeared on everything from cigarette cards to cinema screens. The Spitfire had become a cultural phenomenon, a rallying point for a nation under siege. Communities across Britain banded together in a remarkable grassroots effort known as the Spitfire Funds. These initiatives saw people from all walks of life contributing to the production of new Spitfires. From school children to pensioners, people dug deep into their pockets. Collection tins appeared in shops, and local fundraising events were common, all dedicated to getting more of these magnificent machines into the sky. This sense of ownership was profound. When people looked up and saw a Spitfire soaring overhead, they knew they had played a part in putting it there. It wasn't just the RAF's plane anymore, it was the people's plane. In factories across the country, ordinary civilians became extraordinary heroes. Women, many of whom had never worked outside the home before, took up tools to build the wings that would carry Britain's hopes aloft. Each Spitfire that rolled off the production line was a testament to their skill, dedication, and unwavering spirit. On airfields, ground crews worked tirelessly to keep the Spitfires flying. Their efforts were heroic, often conducted under the constant threat of enemy bombing. These unsung heroes ensured that when the call came, Britain's defenders would be ready to take to the skies. Yet, amidst this surge of national pride, a stark contrast existed. While civilians cheered the Spitfire as a symbol of hope, the pilots who flew them faced a grim reality. Many were barely out of their teens, thrust into a deadly game of cat and mouse high above the clouds. The adoration of the public must have seemed a world away as they grappled with the daily possibility of not returning from their next mission. This juxtaposition between the Spitfire as a cultural icon and the harsh realities of war only served to deepen its significance. It became a bridge between the home front and the front lines, a tangible link between those fighting and those supporting the war effort from afar. As the war progressed, the Spitfire's presence in popular culture only grew stronger. It starred in films, featured in stirring speeches, and even inspired music. Each appearance reinforced its status as more than just a fighter plane. It was now the embodiment of British defiance and determination. 7. Evolution of a legend. Picture a Spitfire streaking across the sky, its familiar silhouette cutting through the clouds. But something's different. It's faster, more agile, and packing a bigger punch. The iconic Spitfire wasn't just one plane, but many. Its story is one of constant evolution, a tale of British ingenuity racing against the relentless march of German technology. As the war raged on, the skies over Europe became a deadly arena of technological one-upmanship. The Luftwaffe threatened to outclass the beloved Spitfire, but the British weren't about to let their winged guardian become obsolete. Behind the scenes, a secret battle unfolded, fought with blueprints and wrenches. The Spitfire Mach 5, introduced in 1941, marked a significant leap forward. This new beast came equipped with 8 303 Browning machine guns, transforming it into a veritable flying fortress. Pilots who had once relied on finesse now wielded devastating firepower. Imagine squadron leader John Smith, a veteran Spitfire pilot, climbing into the cockpit of the new Mach 5 for the first time. His hands trembled slightly as he gripped the unfamiliar controls. But as he took to the skies, a grin spread across his face. The raw power at his fingertips was exhilarating. In his first engagement, he downed 2 Messerschmitts before they knew what hit them. The evolution continued. The Spitfire took on roles its designers never imagined. Some were stripped of guns for photo reconnaissance missions, gathering crucial intelligence. Others adapted to life on aircraft carriers, landing on pitching decks in the middle of the ocean. The Spitfire Mach 9 delivered a dramatic leap forward. Boasting a more powerful engine, it could climb higher and faster than ever before. German pilots, who thought they were safe at high altitudes, suddenly found themselves face to face with a familiar yet deadlier opponent. Luftwaffe ace. Hans Müller recalled his first encounter with a Mach 9. "We thought we had the advantage above 30,000 feet. Then this Spitfire appeared out of nowhere, climbing like a homesick angel. It was faster, more maneuverable. We lost 3 planes in that fight. After that, we never underestimated the Spitfire again. Throughout these changes, the Spitfire's ability to inspire remained constant. Each new mark sent a clear message: Britain would not back down. The Spitfire's evolution became a symbol of the nation's resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. As the war entered its final stages, the Spitfire stood toe-to-toe with the most advanced fighters the Axis powers could muster. From the beaches of Normandy to the skies over Berlin, the latest Spitfires continued to strike fear into enemy pilots. What began as a desperate race to keep pace had become a showcase of British engineering prowess. 8. Beyond the skies of Britain, picture a Spitfire, its sleek silhouette cutting through the shimmering heat haze of a North African desert. How did this British icon, built for misty English mornings, adapt to such alien environments? The Spitfire's journey beyond its homeland began with a daunting challenge: the harsh desert climate. Scorching temperatures and abrasive sand threatened to choke its engines and clog its delicate mechanisms. British engineers rose to the occasion, modifying the Spitfire's cooling systems to withstand the relentless heat. They fitted special air filters to keep out the fine desert sand and adjusted the engine's fuel mixture for optimal performance in the thin, hot air. As Spitfires touched down on makeshift desert airfields, pilots faced new challenges. The vast, featureless landscape demanded enhanced navigation skills, while heat haze distorted vision, making enemy aircraft harder to spot. Yet in the skies, pilots discovered the Spitfire's legendary agility remained undiminished over the dunes. In the Mediterranean, the Spitfire found a new role supporting naval operations and protecting Allied shipping routes. Its exceptional range and speed made it an ideal guardian for vulnerable convoys. During Operation Overlord, Spitfires provided crucial air cover for troops storming Normandy's beaches, ensuring Allied air superiority on D-Day. The Spitfire's reputation spread, attracting pilots from across the Allied nations. Many were initially skeptical, having grown accustomed to their own aircraft. But as they pushed the Spitfire to its limits in combat, these foreign pilots often came away impressed, sometimes describing it as superior to their own fighters. Polish pilot Jan Zumbach's exploits became legendary. In one intense dogfight over France, Zumbach single-handedly engaged 4 German fighters, downing 2 and driving the others away. As the war progressed, the Spitfire's global presence forced the Axis to stretch their resources thin. From the icy skies over Russia to the humid jungles of Burma, its distinctive profile struck fear into enemy pilots. The Spitfire's adaptability in various climates was a testament to its engineering excellence. In the Arctic, extra cockpit heating and winterized lubricants kept pilots warm and engines running. In the tropics, improved cooling systems and humidity-resistant electronics ensured reliability in sweltering conditions. Whether diving out of the sun over African deserts or weaving through storm clouds in the Pacific, the Spitfire maintained its edge. This versatility allowed it to remain a formidable force throughout the war, evolving to meet new challenges as they arose. The Spitfire's global journey had transformed it from a national defender into a true international icon of the skies. 9. The legacy lives on. Picture this: a crisp autumn morning at an airfield in rural England. The sun breaks through the early mist, illuminating a polished aluminum silhouette that seems to defy time itself. An elderly man, his hands weathered by age, reaches out to touch the wing of a restored Spitfire. As his fingers trace the smooth metal, tears well up in his eyes. What memories flood back in this moment? The Spitfire's legacy extends far beyond the smoke-filled skies of World War II. As the world embraced the jet age, many expected propeller-driven fighters to fade into obscurity. Yet somehow the Spitfire refused to be relegated to the history books. Its graceful lines and unmistakable engine note continued to captivate hearts and minds long after the guns fell silent. In the years following the war, the Spitfire found new purpose serving in air forces around the globe. From Israel to Ireland, Burma to Belgium, pilots of many nations experienced the thrill of taking to the skies in this legendary aircraft. The Spitfire's versatility allowed it to take on roles its designers could never have imagined, from high-altitude photo reconnaissance to low-level ground attack missions. The Spitfire represents more than just an aircraft. It embodies the spirit of a nation that stood alone against tyranny and emerged victorious. This enduring fascination has fueled tireless efforts to preserve and restore Spitfires for future generations. Across the world, dedicated teams of engineers and craftsmen work painstakingly to bring these machines back to life. One remarkable restoration project recently made headlines when a Spitfire buried in a French beach for decades was unearthed and rebuilt. The moment its Merlin engine first sputtered to life after 70 years of silence connected us directly to the young pilots who once flew these machines into battle. The Spitfire's influence on aviation design is profound. Its elliptical wing shape inspired generations of aircraft engineers. The lessons learned from its development and combat performance continue to shape modern fighter design. In wind tunnels and computer simulations, engineers still study the Spitfire's aerodynamics, applying its principles to cutting-edge aircraft. Modern-day pilots speak of an almost mystical connection when they take the controls of a restored Spitfire. John Romaine, a veteran warbird pilot, shares his experience. When you're up there, alone in the cockpit, you can't help but think of the 19-year-old lads who flew these in anger. The Spitfire demands respect, but it also rewards you with a feeling of absolute freedom. It's like nothing else in the world. This sentiment is echoed by enthusiasts who flock to air shows and museums for a glimpse of these magnificent machines. The sight of a Spitfire soaring overhead, its distinctive profile silhouetted against the sky, never fails to draw gasps of awe and admiration. In that moment, past and present blur, and we're transported back to a time when the fate of nations hung in the balance. 10. Conclusion. As the roar of the Spitfire's Merlin engine fades into history, its impact resonates through time. Picture yourself as young Alan, watching these magnificent machines soar overhead during the Battle of Britain. The Spitfire became more than an aircraft. It embodied resilience and innovation. Today, its legacy lives on in modern aviation and British engineering pride. Imagine standing before a restored Spitfire at the Imperial War Museum, almost hearing the whispers of pilots who once braved danger-filled skies. What challenges await our future? And what innovations might rise to meet them? The Spitfire reminds us that in our darkest hours, human creativity can shine brightest, forever altering history's course.